I love that. Can you hear that? Let's see if we are properly set up. Yeah, I've got some hot water. I love my hot water kettle. I think I survive a lot on hot water in this house. Got some tea bag in there. Just gonna make some tea. I love that the tea bag doesn't really look any different until you start pouring in hot water. So when you start to know there is value in the tea, I mean, you never know that that tea bag can give you something valuable until you pour in hot water, right? They say to know the value of something, sometimes you have to, yeah, do a few more things. I'll just move this kettle. I've moved the kettle out of my way. I have my tea here. It's just black tea bag, and then I'll leave this to steep for a little while. I'm just making myself a cup of tea, and as I'm continuing to make this cup of tea, so I'll leave it to steep for a while. We'll come back to this later. Actually, before I say what I wanted to talk about today, steeping my tea reminded me I once worked with a colleague that couldn't have tea that hasn't been steeped for at least 3 minutes. And he was a strong believer that once you make your tea, it needs to be covered so that everything stays in there. There's no evaporation of the goodies. I'm not that bad of a big of that kind of a person that I'm going to stay here and say I have to cover my tea, let it steep. No, I love my tea, but then I'm not gonna leave my tea to steep covered. That's enough. It's more than enough. Yeah, back into what I wanted to talk about today. Earlier on, I was just in my garden. I was airing some clothes. We have the privilege of airing clothes out now because obviously it's towards the end of spring, and I think it might be one of the last weekends, if not the last weekend of spring. And then meteorologically, over the next week or so, we will be transitioning from spring into summer. And as I was thinking about that transitioning, I was actually thinking about the various seasons of our lives, isn't it? Like for those of us who live in tropical countries or tropical climates, we have the rainy season and we have the dry season. And for those of us who live in temperate countries, we have mostly 4 seasons, right? We have spring, we have summer, we have autumn or fall in America, and then we've got winter. Did I mention winter? Well, we'll come back to that in a minute. So when you're looking through all these different seasons, it gets to a point where, as I mentioned, we are coming towards the end of spring in the UK. And so once we finish springing or going in spring, we'll go straight into summer. At the moment, it just feels like throughout the spring season, it hasn't really decided the weather hasn't decided what it wanted to do. There are times like today, it will be very nice and bright, and it's windy, yes, but it's really bright. It's really nice and beautiful. So you can basically be outside, you can hang your clothes, as I said. And there has been times that the next day, in one day, there will be hailing, there will be rain, there will be sunshine. Like basically, I was telling my son the other day, we experience sometimes 3 seasons in one day. All those seasons can keep on changing. You can change from one season to the other in one day. But that aside, let's go through the other normal, typical seasons of our lives. So going through this whole thing, and as I was thinking about it earlier on, I was just thinking about the way life is at really like it gets to a point where when we have, for example, the spring season, as I said, it's very unstable, it's very unreliable. There will be all sorts of things happening. And then there comes the summer when it gets so hot, it gets so beautiful. I want to stay outside. I want to be able to, be playful, right? I get to run late in the evening, in the night. I get to wake up very early in the morning, and I can get myself outside at 5 in the morning because it's just so bright. It's so beautiful. Everything seems to be really great. And then it comes to the moment where we transition into fall or autumn for those of you who are in the UK, or fall in America, where things started going down a little bit. The weather starts to change, and it's getting a little bit more darker, but you still can notice some life. All the nice leaves that had dropped off. So during spring, everything starts to grow back. And then in summer, there's a little bit like everything. At the moment, I'm looking at my apple tree, and it's around June time. There's quite some apples on that tree. There's still baby apples, but because they're baby apples, they will start to continue to grow and continue to over the next month or so. I'm expecting really full-blown apples on my tree. That's because it's basically getting into summer, and I can see some of you live with me today. And as it's getting into summer, it gets to a point where, as I say, like my tree will start to give me apples, which if you visit me over the next maybe 4 or 5 weeks, you'll have lots of apples to eat. You can make lots of apple crumble because obviously my tree gives a lot of apples. And so as we're going through these whole season things, and I just started off by making a cup of tea, so it's still here. I haven't added in milk because it's been a few minutes now. I just left my tea to. I'm going to add in just I usually have soy milk. It doesn't matter really. Can get from anywhere, wherever it is. So I'm just gonna put in a little bit of soy milk, and well, I'll show you how it looks like. I love that. It looks really beautiful. So it's just tea bag, hot water, and soy milk there. Going back into the spring, the seasons, as I was saying, it's like one of the last weekends of spring in the UK, and then after that, next week, meteorologically, we are transitioning into summer. And as we're transitioning into summer, I was thinking earlier on, as I was in my garden earlier around today, I was thinking when I'm moving into summer, it gets more hotter, humid, and it can be a little bit uncomfortable than just staying outside in that duration of time in the sun and things like that. It gets to a point where you wouldn't even be wearing a jumper, because a jumper just feels in itself to be really a big ask, really. And then it gets to a point where we go into autumn or fall, and in that season, it just gets a bit more, starts to get more colder. We start to look for our jumpers, we start to bring them back outside, etc. And then we transition into winter, where we'll get our woolly hats on, we'll get our really those nice, beautiful coats outside, right? So you'll start to show off how you've been stocking in the summer and things like that. But as I was thinking about those seasons, I thought about one thing that really struck me was what I used to wear, for example, in winter will not serve me well in summer. It will be too hot, and I will not be able to be comfortable, and I will not be able to be okay with it if I'm actually going to be dressing up in summer the way I dress up in winter. If I dress up in winter the way I dress up in spring, or the way I dress up in summer, that's going to be ridiculous, because the cold itself will send me back home to look for something more warmer to wear, simply because what served me well in spring or what served me well in summer will not serve me well in winter. And I was thinking about actually just the whole seasons of our lives. It may be you are in that season where it's summer for you, everything is great, you have a great family, great relationships, great job, everything just seems to be nice and beautiful and warmth around you. Or you may be physically, so meteorologically in a season. Sometimes those seasons of lives will not necessarily translate into the meteorological season. You might be in a summer season in your life, which is really beautiful, in a winter season outside, right? You may be in spring in your life where things are starting to grow back. the life that was lost in winter. In winter, everything dies. The leaves are dead. The trees won't. You, if you look at my tree, my apple tree in winter, it will really be a desperate tree in itself. It's so dry. There's no leaves. There's nothing. And in that season, you may be in that. You may be meteorologically in a summer season, but things in your life seem like they are in a winter season. It feels like nothing is working. It feels like everything is just dead. It just feels like your dreams are dead, your ambitions are dead. You're really struggling to get yourself moving and get yourself back into this thing called motivation and things like that. Or you may actually be in an autumn season, where in that season of autumn where there is a little bit of like what was growing starts to fall away, what was in your life, you start to see maybe it's relationships falling off, it may be friendships being cut off, it may be a loved one who's deteriorating in health and things like that. And you're thinking and just looking back and thinking, what on earth is going on? And as I was thinking about this whole thing, I was thinking to say, like, really, once you realize life has been made to be in seasons, and number one, appreciate and acknowledge the season that you are in, right? If you're at the moment in a winter season where everything seems like it's just dead, acknowledge it, number one, because you cannot be able to deal with something that you do not acknowledge. So acknowledge that season. Number two, appreciate God for that season, because even if you read in Ecclesiastics, I managed to say that, chapter 3, it talks about there is a time for everything. And that means that there will be a time where we will have to make friendships, and there will be a time where we will have to bid goodbye to those friendships. There will be a time where we will have to gather. There will be a time where we'll have to disperse. There will be a time where we'll have to there will be time for life. There'll be time where life will no longer be there, right? So as you're going through those seasons, as I said, number one, acknowledge them. Number two, name them. Number three, be thankful. Number two, name them and acknowledge them is the same thing. Be thankful for those seasons. Be thankful for the winter time, for those things that seem to be dead. Be thankful for the springtime where there seems to be life coming up. There seems to be stuff that is happening. There seems to be, regrowth and things like that. But also be thankful when it feels like you're on the mountaintop moments of your life. And then sit down with yourself and think about those seasons. For example, in this winter, you may want to start, in the springtime, as things are growing, you may want to start preparing yourself for harvest. In the harvest time, in summertime, you may want to start preparing yourself for fall, where things start to decrease and things like that. And in fall, you may want to start preparing yourself for winter, and that will mean making your stores ready, putting up building up on your vitamin D, for example. It may be stocking up a little bit more things that will keep you warm and things like that. Begin to ask yourself in that season, what do I need to prepare for the next season? Because it's not going to last forever. No seasons of our lives are meant to last forever. If you're in a winter season, it's not meant to last forever. It's not meant to be like, because I'm in winter today, it doesn't, just because I'm in winter today does not mean that my life will be in winter forever. And because I'm in summer today doesn't mean that my life will be in summer forever. And because I'm in spring today doesn't mean that my life will be in spring forever. Seasons come and seasons go. Changes will come, changes will, something that is inevitable in life is a thing called change. There is something that you can never ignore, and that's change. We will always have changes. We'll always have something happening. There will always be something changing. There'll always be a transitioning coming in our lives. And so when you're in that season, prepare yourself for the next season. If you're in a rainy season today, prepare yourself for a dry season. If you're in a dry season today, prepare yourself for a rainy season. I remember, as I say, I grew up in the village, and we used to be a small scale farming for a family. And I remember so well, we used to plant twice a year. In the days when when it got to point around January, February, it wasn't raining at all. It was a season where we will wake up in the morning, we'll go to the ground, to the shambas, to the farm, we will dig the ground, we'll plow the ground, we will do everything that we were needing to do in preparation for the time when it will start to rain. We didn't know it was, of course, there was a pattern that you knew around March time there will be rain, and that will be the time when you start to plant and things like that. But we were never aware, like assured of the fact that there's gonna be rain. But we had faith that come April we will have proper rain. So because of that, we started preparing early. We started to prepare our lands. We started to dig our farms. We started to do whatever that we needed so that by the time it gets to the planting season, we were ready for that. And when it got to the time where we had planted and there was rain, we were ready for the season of weeding. We were ready for the season of harvesting. And so when you are in that current season, always remind yourself this is not going to last forever. And so what can I put in place as mechanisms, as principles and things that I can be able to do so that in this season I can prepare for the next season. I can be grateful for this current season that doesn't seem to be good, right? I love Habakkuk talks about, I think it's chapter 3 that talks about, even though there will not be figs at the moment, you're looking into your fig tree and it doesn't seem to be any figs in there, yet I will be grateful, yet I will have faith, right? Faith is an evidence of things not seen. You don't see the rain, yet you go ahead and prepare. And somebody once said something to me that stuck with me and said, rain only matters for someone who has seed in the ground. When you have a seed in your ground, when I planted my vegetables that have all been eaten by caterpillars, no, they are the snails. When I was planting that, I got to a point where I was desperate to see the rain. There's a point where in the evening I'll come back home from work and I'll need to go and water my plants, because if I didn't do that, my seeds will die. And if somebody who doesn't have seed in the ground, which could be something that has been done in the springtime, for example, for somebody that doesn't have seed, it doesn't matter whether it rains or it doesn't rain. It don't matter to me. But if you've got seed in the ground, then it matters to you that it rains. It matters to you that something happens, because if something doesn't happen, you're going to see, you'll be desperate for that rain. So as you're preparing yourself, as you are in that season, for some of us, it might be that season where we have children that we're preparing them for exams. That's a season, right? For some of us, it may be whatever it is. My prayer and my hope is that you carry that season so well. And some of us might actually be in a season of waiting. Waiting can be a tricky one because it needs a lot of patience. It needs a lot of perseverance. Maybe you have been praying for a miracle and you haven't seen that miracle, and you're thinking, where's God? Where is He in this whole situation? What is He saying? And you don't hear anything. It's easy when you have an answer that you can process it, even if it's a no. Whereas if you're in that waiting, you're waiting for a moment where there'll be something that will come up for an answer for you. You'll be thinking, goodness me, where is God in all these things? If you're in that season, waiting can be painful. But look, as you're waiting, what are you doing? Are you waiting actively or are you waiting passively? Active waiting is like, I'm waiting to lose my weight, but actively I'll go to exercise. I'll try to eat healthy. I'll try to do something that moves me towards that goal. Whereas passive waiting is come what come rain, what will be will be. No, what will be will not be, because there's somewhere, and even if you're praying for something, there's a place where you have to give feet to your faith, to say, hey faith, come on here, get this faith on, and let's have our faith, add some faith to the faith. Well, so I just thought I'm gonna do some encouragement to say, no matter the season that you're in, never give up. never give up. Keep going. There are so many people looking at you, how you carry that season so well, that season can be a testimony to somebody else. You can come back and say to someone, hey, it was a tough season, but hey, I made it. And that can be somebody else's encouragement. Well, I've got to go. I've got other things I'm doing. Have an amazing day. Catch up with you again very much soon. Goodbye.